So I think it's about that time. 5-minute grace period. So um, before we get started, as you can see on the slide, we're asking that students keep their video off, which you are all doing, which is great, and to keep your audio on mute. This way, if mom or dad, or if a siren goes by or something, it doesn't disturb the presentation. So thank you for muting yourselves. And then also, if you see at the very bottom of your screen, if you hover down, a bunch of options should pop up. So there's one that says chat. There is a live chat group that is going to be taking place during the presentation. And so if you have questions, feel free to ask the questions in that chat box. And while Anne is presenting, you can ask, and I'm going to kindly interrupt her if there's a relevant question. Otherwise, and vice versa. And then otherwise, we have Q&A at the end as well. So that chat box, you're welcome to pop it out and to ask questions along the way. And I'll actually send a quick message to say hi to everyone, so you can see that as well. So if you didn't pop it out, you're probably getting an orange flash where the chat box is. So again, feel free to throw in your questions throughout or at the end. And then lastly, at the end, we are going to have that Q&A. So if you're feeling like you want to ask your question live using your audio, we can do that, but that's going to be at the end of the presentation. Anne, anything you want to add before we jump in?
Just please, if you haven't had a chance to sign in on that kiosk, because if we need to send any follow-up information, or if you all want some of the links that we're going to show you, please feel free to sign in, or please make sure that you sign in so that way we can actually follow up and send these things to you.
So there's a quick question about signing into the kiosk. You should have, because you RSVP'd and you have this link, you should have received instructions in that same exact email. It's actually the first part of the email before the link for Zoom. And it's information similar to how it would look familiar when you sign into an event or sign into the office at Starr. It's going to ask you, it's going to look the same and then ask you for a code. So it should be in that email that was sent out earlier today.
Great. Well, with that being said, I think we can kick off, and then if any other folks join us, they'll just come in right at a good time. You should have also got a notification that this workshop is being recorded, so please know that. Just know that we are going to try to hold on to this for a little while and see what we can do with this workshop. So again, thank you all for joining. Let me just get this done. All right, so tonight's topic is going to be engaging employers and job searching during coronavirus. So as Ricki mentioned, that is Ricki Whiteson. I'll let her introduce herself, but I'll introduce myself first. So my name is Anne Conception. I'm Assistant Director for Recruiting and Employer Development here at the Starr Career Development Center. So a lot of my role is working with our employers to get them on campus in order to recruit you all. So this involves having them come for information sessions on campus recruiting and just helping them to make sure that they can connect with you all. So obviously now that things are being done virtually, we are still engaging our employers and are trying to get them to still connect with you. So that's why I'm a part of tonight's webinar. I'll let Ricki introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Ricki Whiteson. I'm the Assistant Director of Employer Relations and Career Programming. So similar to Anne, I work in the front line with the employers, bringing them to campus and overseeing a lot of the events that we do. So hopefully many of you have come to our career fairs or panels and expos. I'm probably the person who's overseeing those. So we talk to employers on a regular basis and try to provide opportunities for you all to meet with them. So hello.
Great. And I just want to take this time just to take a moment and recognize that I think this is all very crazy times for everyone. And I want to just say that I am giving you all so much props and so much love from afar, just because I know how stressful this has all been for you all to transition virtually in your classes, as well as, having those concerns and those fears about what's going to happen in the job market. So we're here to try to address some of those concerns. Again, please feel free to write questions in the chat box or wait till the end. We want to be able to address as many concerns. A lot of these things are ever changing. So even just before this, Ricki and I were updating some data because things change. but we are still available for you even after this. So please know we are still here for you and are thinking of you all. Okay, so let's get started. So here's our agenda for today's presentation. So we are going to talk about what services are just available to you all if you haven't seen already. So you know what ways we are here for you, what the current employment trends are that we're seeing, where you can find virtual employer events, and how to engage those employers virtually. We just want to touch upon some etiquette for engaging in these events because you never really know. You got to say these things until they come up. We want to talk about what interviewing is right now during coronavirus, how to master working remotely, and just some things that you can be doing now. And then of course, we're going to end with that Q&A. So just some available services just from our office. Our office has transitioned to offering 100% virtual services. And that includes things like Starr Search has always been useful and has always been up and running. So through that, we are offering virtual career advisement appointments, virtual on-campus recruiting and employer information sessions, and then modified virtual career workshops and programs such as this. So know that our services are still being offered. We are every day, all of our counselors, or Monday through Friday, I should say, our counselors are available for counseling appointments every single day, as well as we are still actively working with our employers to host virtual events. So yesterday we had, for example, Bank of America did a panel, made a company co-op doing part of our tech career series, and then Prudential Financial did an event in the evening. So employers are still looking to engage with students. They're just being creative on the ways that they can do that. We also have all of our online resources still available to you all. So mock interview tools, Vault, Focus 2, Going Global. Those are resources that are all listed under Starr Search that you can utilize for a variety of reasons for your career search, such as doing self-assessments, learning about how to work abroad, practicing your interviewing skills. Now's a good time to be practicing your virtual mock interviewing skills since everything is virtual. As well as our social media and our weekly newsletter is still something that we put out. Our weekly newsletter, please make sure if you aren't receiving it, make sure you check your spam folder because we found that apparently it's going there sometimes. That has all of the events that are happening each week. So these employer presentations, we like to highlight certain jobs that are being recruited for at the moment. And then in our social media, it's just our way to engage with you and again, keep you all updated. And as Ricki mentioned, as people were popping in, we are starting to use our social media such as Instagram in order to engage with you all in a different way. So we are going to be doing some Instagram live Ask a Counselor, as well as trying to engage our employers on social media as well. So we hope that you participate in that and just follow us on social media. At the end, we'll have up all of our social media channels so you can follow us. All right, so current employment trends. NACE is a national organization that Ricki and I are a part of, as well as a lot of career services professionals and employers are a part of. And as of March 27th, this is where we're seeing some of these hiring trends being impacted in terms of coronavirus. So you'll see that 2.5% of companies have canceled their summer internship programs. 71% of companies are continuing with their summer internship programs as planned, and 2.2% of companies are moving all internships virtually. So we just want to put that out there as a lens for where we are currently. I've been hearing a lot of students in my appointments, at least, that are concerned that companies aren't going to be hiring. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of companies we're hearing are honoring their offers and are working with students in order to move things virtually or trying to see what ways they can work with you to still keep this internship. Very few companies have had to cancel, but I think in an effort of being honest and how coronavirus is impacting things, it'd be a lie to say that there aren't cancellations and offers rescinded. But for the most part, companies are working to be creative in order to honor these offers and still have all of you as summer interns.
I do also want to point out that if you look at the chart, it's from the last 3 weeks. And so even if you look at the very first question of we'll continue with internships as planned, 3 weeks ago, it was 90.5%. And now as of pretty much this week, it has declined. So as Anne mentioned, it is ever changing and there will continue to be shifts. And our ability to be flexible and adaptable is just going to continue to be necessary. But again, this is as of 3 days ago. So keep in mind that things will be shifting as news progresses.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So as of April 1st, companies have begun to identify which programs are going to be canceled, have a hiring freeze, will continue scheduled or transition virtually. So these are just some links that you can check out. I'll actually open them up just to see, but these are going to show you where some of those trends are and where some of these programs lie. For some of you who had summer internships or job offers, you may already know some of this data because maybe your company has reached out to you. I'm hoping they've reached out to you and let you know. But this just is kind of a live website to see where some of this hiring looks like. So let me just
it's there. These two sites are very robust, and again, they're ever changing. And these are two links that we're going to plan to send to you all afterwards. Again, it's based on who signed into that kiosk, and that's how we'll know that you were here. So these are two websites that we're going to send, and you can search as often or as not often as you would like. And it's also a really cool way to see which companies are still hiring, because if you're looking to apply right now, you can see who is worth your time and worth putting some more extra efforts into. And Anne might be about to say this, but don't be alarmed by all the cancels. All the cancels are in there first, followed by still hiring.
Yes, so Ricki says that because I was looking through this list and I was horrified when I saw how many were canceled and then realized they put them all together. So in an effort to make sure that I'm not giving anyone motion sickness, I'm going to kind of scroll through this as slow as possible because I know I get really nauseous when people go through things really quickly. But you're going to see that there are companies here that have, unfortunately had to cancel. I think you can also see just based on the kinds of companies, like I even saw like Rent the Runway is canceled, but that's a lot of very hands-on. I use Rent the Runway, so it is very hands-on work.
Airlines canceling, that makes sense, or TripAdvisors, or a lot of hospitality related opportunities.
Yeah. So that was the list of canceled. These are the companies currently that have not canceled, but there are notes, right? Some of them are, Airbnb is still moving forward with their in-person, but again, the world is ever changing. Apple is going to be starting remotely. Audible is still planning to start June 1st. Blend is actively hiring. And there's a link that I think links to the current openings. So, this one has a hiring freeze. So again, I think it's worth scrolling through this and seeing in terms of internship opportunities. But as Ricki mentioned, the ones that have no note about whether or not they are canceled or doing a hiring freeze are companies you should certainly be looking up to see what their opportunities are that are currently available. So you'll see some of them have dates as well of when they will be giving you information and more updates. So this is the one about internships. Again, we will be sending that link out so you don't have to just see it on the shared screen. This is a website for about general, not just internship hiring. So this is an updated, this is a live updated website. So you'll see like some companies have had to provide layoffs and are shutting down completely. I haven't seen a lot of companies shutting down, but unfortunately there are companies that are doing layoffs, but a lot of companies who are hiring, they'll let you know whether or not offers had to be rescinded. So this is a pretty accurate as of now document that again is constantly being updated. So you can see here which companies are hiring. And I don't know about you all, it makes me feel hopeful to see that there's still a lot of green and not really as much red. Like we're seeing some hiring freezes, but that doesn't mean not hiring anymore. It just means we need to take a pause until we understand what the heck is going on in the world. So again, we'll be sharing these links with you so that way you can search and then be really purposeful on which companies to continue searching with. So let me just reshare this. Okay. So in response as well to coronavirus, this is a current list of companies that are actively looking to hire and that are actively looking to increase their workforce. I think based on what's going on in the world and what we know is still open and essential workers, I think that this list, not an all-inclusive list, but is a pretty obvious one. I think we know why certain companies on this list are actively hiring. But again, that has to do a lot with what is happening in the world. So in all of these crazy times, a lot of companies are putting out a lot of articles and a lot of data. And, you know, one of the most useful things that I read was, I think it's a way to kind of be realistic of the situation, is that we need to act as if we potentially could lose our jobs tomorrow and be open to what the world needs right now. So, you know, I would say is if you're actively searching, it doesn't mean that you need to take what you can get, but I think that we should be a little bit more flexible in times like these to at least be open to the idea of other kinds of jobs, even if they are temporary. So I know, unfortunately, a lot of students and a lot of people have had to get laid off or are unable to work. So if you're even looking for current temporary roles, these are some companies that you could look to work with. And again, those links that we're going to send have an even more inclusive list. This is just a sample list that we had in one article. And again, you can, and we'll go through Starr Search, but you can also look for the opportunities also in Starr Search in addition to what's on this list. Okay, so just an important note, just to again follow up on employment trends, is April 1st, so today, is definitely a big decision date for employers in terms of what's going to happen with their hiring for internships or jobs. So even the data we gave you is that it might be different than what it is today, but I think given the, I guess, presidential statement of now April 30th being a new deadline, this April 1st deadline could be an old date now. So I think some companies will have moved forward to make some decisions, but April 30th, I think, is a new deadline that we're working off of to really see what is going to happen, especially for those summer opportunities. Most companies, as we mentioned, are still planning to hire full-time. Obviously, a lot of industries that are directly impacted by coronavirus, such as hospitality, entertainment, et cetera, those are feeling an initial strain and may have less hiring currently active, but a lot of other companies and industries have noted that they are still moving forward with their full-time hiring. Companies, again, are also trying to figure out how to do remote opportunities or are holding out hope that summer internships and summer programs are going to be able to resume as scheduled. I know even on my end, I've had a couple calls with different employers who are asking about what's going on with Baruch, and they're still pretty hopeful that those summer offers are still going to be able to move forward. All right, so where can you find virtual events to engage with our employers? Because I think that's going to be the most important part, right? Is getting in front of employers, being able to talk with them and let them, you know, kind of hear straight from them what is happening with this company, but also what are you recruiting us for? So as I mentioned earlier, is I work very closely with our employers to host these events, usually on campus, but now are hosted virtually. And we post all of those events on Starr Search. These are great opportunities for you to learn about what's happening and ask your questions. And again, put a really good face to a name so that way when you apply, they're willing to work with you. So this is a screenshot of Starr Search right now. And if you see here under events, so info sessions and workshops are going to be where you'll find these employer events. Info sessions are a little bit more obvious. Workshops, you found this workshop under the workshops tab, but like, for example, our tech career series that's currently happening, those are listed under workshops, but those are employer events. Also, I should have made a little arrow here. Under jobs, you may actually find some of these employer events as well. They just might not be listed under info sessions just due to the nature of the system. So for example, for those of you who are interested, this morning I put up 2 companies, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, both posted virtual webinars. And those are all listed under jobs just because they have registration deadlines. So make sure you're checking out the job postings for these events, as well as info sessions and workshops. And I am going to take you through Starr Search really quickly just to give you guys a little bit of a tour if you haven't done it already.
One thing I'll add while Anne is getting that ready is under workshops as well are a lot of topic-based presentations. And so she mentioned that we are having a tech career series earlier this week. I have no idea what days they are anymore, but yesterday we had a workshop on data analytics and digital marketing. later in the month, we're doing an event on healthcare. So they're multi-employer topic-based presentations. So the workshops is a great place to find those.
Great. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Are we on Starr Search? Okay. Great. So this is what Starr Search is going to look like for you all when you sign in. If you've never signed in before, it will prompt you to complete and fill out your account. So please make sure you do that to the best of your ability. But if you go right here under events, so info sessions, you'll see different companies that are hosting events. So for example, I'm going to pull up BDO because this one's happening tomorrow in case anyone's interested. If you log in, you'll see whether or not it's a virtual session. It will give you a description of what you're going to expect. So they'll tell you a little bit about the company and usually what they're going to be talking about. So they're going to be talking about their internship and full-time opportunities for the upcoming season. So again, BDO is still actively hiring. And then depending on the event, we'll either have the virtual webinar link already posted or will require you to RSVP. We ask that you RSVP to the events that you are interested in attending and would like to attend, mostly because if we have to send any updates, so for example, if a company last minute needs to change the event or the link changed, we need to be able to send that out to you. So please make sure you RSVP on Starr Search, as well as read the full description. Companies might need you to register in advance on their website, and then we'll follow up and email you the link to access it. So for example, the Bank of America panel yesterday, students needed to register in advance, and if you didn't, you were not able to participate. Unfortunately, because the company was monitoring that on their end, if students reached out to us and said, we need the link, I unfortunately did not have it. So please make sure that you just read the whole description because we don't want you to miss out on opportunities just because there was a hidden registration that no one knew about. So you can check out all that. And then again, mark it on your calendar and make sure you participate. These are great opportunities to engage with the employers and find out what's going on. So I'm just scrolling through. There's a couple other events. So you'll see companies like City Year. I know you're seeing where there's multiple events. Oftentimes companies, especially now because things are virtual and they're able to do more events from home, they will be listed multiple times because they're doing multiple events. Or if it's a company that has multiple divisions, they might be listed multiple times because one division is doing an event and then a separate one is doing one on a different day. So you do have to log in order to see what the topic is. And if it's a specific division, in bold on the top will tell you. But otherwise, read the description. Please make sure that you're checking out the link and registering in order to participate. As far as workshops, so I just want to point those out too. So obviously you all are here right now with us. So again, thank you for being a part of today. I want to pull up, you'll see all the different workshops, but for example, part of our tech career series that Ricki was mentioning. Here's another one, another employer that's going to be engaging with you all to talk about their current trends as well as what hiring they have as well. So please make sure to check that out. Even here, Bloomberg is doing some events. Baruch and beyond. So those of you who are interested in healthcare, this is going to be a good opportunity for you to engage with those in the healthcare industry and so on and so forth. As far as the jobs, I just want to show, just take a minute to look at that real quick for the employer events, as well as to kind of address some of the thoughts about how the heck am I going to job search during coronavirus. So as far as the employer events, just so I'm kind of sticking to task, I'm just going to pull this up here. So you'll see for those virtual sessions. So I'm pulling up Goldman Sachs just because I know that that's up there and I put that one up there earlier. Please make sure that you are reading again the description. They're hosting multiple events and you have to register at the link here. So you have to click this one. If not, there's a flyer here that also has more information and the link to participate in their virtual sessions. Again, opportunities to engage employers. So for the general job searching, Starr Search is like any job search website, like Indeed.com, LinkedIn.com. You just have to be very purposeful on the way that you search for things. Any website is not always perfect, so you do have to kind of give it a little bit of flexibility. But Starr Search in particular, you can use in a variety of ways. So it will pull up sample jobs based on your career interests that you filled out in your account when you first logged in. If you're following any employers, it will suggest opportunities that they have posted, as well as what are the latest jobs. So we have a team of job posting specialists who vet and approve jobs to be posted every single day. These are going to be the new ones that just got posted, so you can see what's new and what's recent, as well as what jobs are on their way out. On our website, the jobs are actually only technically allowed to be on for about 2 months, which also means that they're recent. How many times do you go on other websites and it says it's been up there for 120 plus days and you don't know if it's filled or not? It's very frustrating. This helps that because we only allow positions to be posted for about 2 months at most. And that gives you a chance to apply and know that they're still active. So it does also tell you which ones are on their way out, as well as trending jobs, which usually means these are the ones that Baruch students are super interested in and want to apply. So you can look at it from that end. Additionally, you can do a keyword search depending on what you're applying for, or you can even go here in the filters. So let's say you are interested in internships. You could click internship and make sure you hit apply. That was my mistake. I kept forgetting to hit apply and wondering why the number didn't change. So right off the bat in our system currently, there are 324 internships. And again, we have a team of people who are constantly updating this. So there's always going to be more opportunities. That's just, again, every internship. If you want to be more specific, you can check out these filters, industry and job function. I usually recommend avoiding the industry filter only because I think we're aware that every industry needs all sorts of jobs, right? Apple needs someone in marketing as well as in technology, as well as in administration, versus if you wanted to look for technology jobs. So job function focuses more on what you're actually going to be doing, because you could be a CIS major doing a tech-related internship in healthcare. And you might not get that if you click healthcare as an industry. So let's just say we want to pull up finance because that's the one that's closest to my mouse. There are 34 current finance-related internships, or that have been cataloged as finance internships that are on here. So you're seeing that some say not qualified, but that's going to be dependent on the filters that you put on your account. So please, please, please make sure that your account is up to date in terms of your major, your graduation date, class year, all of that, because if things don't match up, you will not be able to apply. And we've had that happen many times where students can't apply for jobs, even though they qualify for it. So that's kind of just the general way to search on Starr Search, at least. In order to then apply, you would, same thing, click into it, read a little bit of the description, see what's going on here. Take note of the important dates. So this one has an application deadline of April 9th. It'll tell you what class years they want to apply. It'll tell you the qualifications down here. It'll also give you a little bit more information here, like, is it an unpaid internship? Nope, this is a nice paid hourly internship. And it does require a cover letter. So if you need help with the cover letter, we do workshops about that as well. If you want to apply, usually there is an apply button, or where is it? Oh, the test account we have we do not allow it to apply to positions because we don't want to capture that in the numbers. So that's the only reason you're not seeing an apply button here, but usually there's a really nice apply button here that when you click it, you can see where you need to apply, whether it's here on Starr Search or on their website. So I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint. And again, please feel free to pop any questions that you may have in the chat box or hold them until the end. Share my screen again. Okay, so I already talked about this a little bit, but just how to engage employers virtually. So employers are looking to host more virtual events. Unfortunately, at the end of our time being on campus, a lot of events did get canceled, but a lot of those companies that had to cancel are actually now planning their events to be rescheduled virtually. So it is a nice time to be able to engage with them. So some of these opportunities or events that you can participate in are going to be panels, info sessions, workshops, professional development events, or multi-division company events. And all of them include some sort of professional presentation with time for Q&A at the end, or some sort of open forum or open networking. So every single event, you should be able to engage with employers. So we're gonna take you through some of that etiquette piece to make sure that as you engage with employers, you are putting your best foot forward and representing yourself and Baruch as best as possible.
So I'm going to jump in. Thank you, Anne. So similar to today and potentially some of the events that you've already participated in, there are a number of different platforms that companies or organizations are using. Of course, today we're using Zoom. Google Hangouts is very popular. Skype is popular, WebEx, etc. So just be prepared to have to log in, have some sort of potential password, but that's how everyone is interacting right now. And of course, similar to today, these platforms have audio and visual capabilities, so you should be able to see each other and at least hear each other. But it depends on who's hosting and how they want to engage with the audience, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. But usually these workshops are all led by a company representative or someone from the Career Center, from Baruch. And there's going to be a presentation or a Q&A with students as the audience. As Anne mentioned, these could be panels, workshops, presentations with shared screens like we're doing right now. So it really can be a number of different ways that these different events are hosted. But when it comes to etiquette and what we should do as participants, the first thing really is about finding a quiet space. We know that that might be a little tricky. We're in shared spaces with family, with friends, whomever, but we want to do our best to find a quiet space when possible. And that's when having a mute button is going to come in handy, because if you do have someone in the background or if there is noise in the background, you can just mute yourself, and that way you can still listen in without the noise being disruptive. Additionally, you want to do your best to have a professional background. You could see me, for example. I have a white background right now, as does Anne. So you want to try not to be in bed or be in your kitchen or have a really busy background that could distract from the person who is engaging with you. And also, you want to be aware that if it is an employer-specific event, you want to make the best first impression that you can. And so they are going to take note of the background. So you want to make sure that it is as professional as possible, in addition to not being disruptive or distracting. You also want to make sure you're in appropriate attire. You know, we're all home and we all want to be in pajamas or in sweats. But when it comes to tuning into presentations, especially with employers, you want to do your best to still look the part, because again, this could potentially be their first impression of you, and you want to make sure that you look appropriate. There are always the jokes of business on top, party on the bottom. Maybe you want to wear sweats on the bottom and a button down on top. But you never know what's going to happen if you have to jump up in a minute's notice. So just make sure that both sets of clothing are appropriate. Additionally, you want to make sure to test the lighting and the angle of your camera. I know right now I put on a lot of lights. Anne's lighting is always great, but it's something that people are taking note of. And then, of course, the angle of the computer. You want to do your best to make it at eye level. I know me, for example, my computer is propped up right now on a shoebox. Obviously, if we're used to having desks at certain levels, we might be in a different environment right now. So doing our best to make sure that the videos are eye level as well.
I propped my laptop up on a cake carrier case.
So we're getting creative. We are also, not just students. A few other things that we've kind of talked about, but muting and unmuting when needed. So sometimes the host of the workshop or presentation can set up different, different capabilities. So when people enter the event, they might have it set that you are automatically entered on mute, but that's not always the case. So you want to be aware of that. I know I recently saw a video, maybe on Instagram, of a student in class, and he asked his professor a question. Then his mom was asking him something in the background and he was screaming at his mom, and then the whole class heard it. If only he had muted in that moment, people would not have seen that side of him. So it's just really helpful to be aware if your camera is on and if your sound is on as well. And then when it comes to engaging, so there's going to be a time when the host wants to hear from you. And so this could take place in a number of different ways. Just like we kicked off this workshop, we asked everyone to put in their questions in our chat box. Sometimes presenters are open to people interrupting throughout or asking questions throughout, but sometimes people also want, there's in Zoom specifically, I'm sure other platforms have it as well, there's a raising your hand function. So that's a good way to indicate to the presenter that you have a question. So each one of these sessions might be a little bit different. So it's just helpful to know the general guidelines and to listen in when a presenter is asking for their preference. Let's see, what else? A big one, the last bullet talks about being mindful of others and not monopolizing the time. So we're all going through this together, and everyone wants to make their best impression and wants to, you know, have a good conversation with a recruiter or with a company representative. But it's hard to see who else wants to join in and who else might have a question. So you just want to be polite and make sure that you're asking one question at a time and not taking up too much time, especially when other students might have questions. Even if you don't see it or you might not be able to know they have a question, we still want to practice this etiquette. If no one asks anything else and you truly do have another question to ask, feel free to jump in again, but we want to make sure that other people are getting a chance. All right, let's see. When it comes to interviewing right now, so we do want to say that hopefully, depending on the role that you are applying to and that you're looking to gain, most companies have shifted their interviewing to be digital. So that is a vast majority of full-time and internship opportunities that you're probably going to come across. But there are certain opportunities that are going to ask for in person. You know, if it's some of those part-time roles, maybe at the local pharmacy or at a local grocery store, there might be a chance that you have to go in and meet with someone in person. So what happens if this takes place? So the first thing that we would advise is to try to schedule or reschedule to a time that is off peak. So that means a time where the streets or subways or trains are not going to be super busy. We want to do our best to avoid large crowds and practice social distancing. And so if it's possible to schedule a time during an off-peak or an interview during an off-peak time, that would be the best bet. Additionally, if you cannot reschedule, maybe it'll be helpful for you to commute over a little bit earlier. So if you can't reschedule the meeting, at least your commuting could be during a less crowded time. Also, you want to make sure to ask if a video or a phone interview is possible. There's no harm in asking, and everyone is completely understandable right now as to why you're asking this question. So it never hurts, because worst case scenario, they say, no, we want you to come in, but best case scenario, they say, absolutely, let's do it. So you definitely want to try to do that if you can. So keeping in with this scenario, if you have it in person, you have commuted over and you are now speaking with someone, we would encourage you to avoid shaking hands. I think that should be common practice by now. And if they go to shake your hand, you can just simply say that you are holding off and it is a pleasure to meet them and they're really excited to be, you're excited to be here for the interview, but due to safety reasons or you're trying to be hygienically conscious, you are going to hold off on shaking hands right now. So it is completely fine to say that. And we, of course, want to make sure that you are being safe if you have an in-person interview. So a few more things to keep in mind. When you are arriving, you want to make sure that you're showing up a little bit early, even extra early. So you should be arriving to any interview between 10 and 15 minutes ahead of time. So I would really stick with that 15-minute or so, because you want to leave yourself with the chance to wash your hands ahead of your conversation. So when you are showing up to an interview, if you're able to ask someone, whether it be the receptionist or someone at the front office, if there's a restroom that you could visit, this way you can wash your hands as you arrive. And the same thing as you are leaving. So you want to make sure to just be as hygienically cautious as possible. A few extra things to bring in addition to your resume, in addition to a pen and paper, any directions you might need. We would encourage you to bring a travel hand sanitizer if you have access to them, as well as a pack of travel tissues. Again, we just want to be prepared in this tricky time. And then lastly, you are welcome to ask if there are any guidelines, anything you should know before showing up, any specific protocols that you should be aware of before arriving. Maybe a company's front office or front doors are closed temporarily. Maybe you think, oh, I know where they're located, I Googled them, but maybe they're using a satellite office in a less busy place right now. Maybe there's a separate elevator you should be taking, or they're doing only a certain amount of people in the office space or in the store at once. So you're welcome to ask them if there are any protocols that you should know before showing up for the interview. Okay, so that concludes for the in-person interviewing. But now, so many of these opportunities, like we've talked about, are all doing video interviewing. So hopefully this is not brand new to you, because that's the trend that a lot of companies have been practicing in the last few years or so. So we're gonna do an overview on this as well. But you do want to approach a video interview as if it's in person. And so you want to take the same steps. You want to start with researching the company, taking a look on different sources like Vault. You are welcome to just do a simple Google search, go on Glassdoor. We really love using Vault because we know it's reputable information, and it is free of service and free of charge through using Starr Search, because it is a paid service, but Baruch and CUNY provide it for free for all students. So you want to make sure that you're researching the companies, seeing if they have any news, seeing if there's anything that you should be aware of ahead of time, as well as preparing all of your answers to questions. And so you want to think about the typical questions that are asked. You know, the behaviorals of, tell me about a time that you worked on a team, or has there been a time that you've dealt with a tricky coworker, classmates? Then there are the more traditional opening questions, like the tell me about yourself, where do you go to school, why did you choose that major? You should also be ready for some more technical questions. So same way you would prepare for a traditional interview. The main difference is practicing talking out loud in your room, or having a one-sided conversation. Just like right now, you know, I'm talking to my computer and you are not speaking back, and it certainly feels a little bit different, but you should practice doing this, because the more you do so, the more it feels a little bit more comfortable and less awkward. Additionally, you want to be aware of your demeanor when you are on a video interview. So you want to be aware of facial expressions and nonverbals. If you often look up to the side, you might want to make sure that you're looking at the camera. A question that's always asked is, you know, I want to look at the person as I'm speaking, but I want them to think I'm looking, so I'm not looking in the camera, and you overthink it sometimes. It is completely fine to look at the person's face. I'm looking at Anne's face right now, and she doesn't even know it maybe. And this is what it looks like if I'm looking at the camera, which sometimes is a little off-putting, but it depends on the type of interview you have. If it's a one-sided interview and there's no one to look at, you're welcome to look at the camera. If it is two-sided, maybe on Skype or Zoom, looking at the other person is completely appropriate. Additionally, knowing how close to a computer you should sit is helpful. So an easy way to think about it is an arm's length distance. If you can see, I can actually touch my computer from here, but the trick is you want to think of it as your chest and above for the most part. You don't want to be too close, and you don't want to be too far away. So it's almost like if you think about your headshot or your LinkedIn picture, it's a similar distance. Additionally, staying focused could be really tough, especially right now. You know, we're living in a shared space for the most part, and there are people maybe walking back and forth. So you want to find an environment that has limited distractions, that's a quiet space that you can really focus on what's going on and kind of block out everything else taking place around us. And it's important to be concise and don't ramble on. So I will move on. And the last thing is trying to be yourself. A lot of students struggle with having their personalities come through during a video interview, especially if it's a one-sided video interview. So that's when practicing and preparing comes in extra handy, so you can focus on bringing some of your personality through. Okay, so one area that we also want to briefly talk about is working remotely in general. So you might already have a job or an internship, and you might be able to transition it to being remote, or maybe you are interviewing for remote opportunities. So a few tips in terms of working remotely in general. So having the right equipment, ideally you have a computer that has visual and audio capabilities. And so that would probably be the main goal, and that would set you up for success, as well as Wi-Fi or having a hotspot. And so what we would recommend is talking to your employer if you don't have access to this, and your employer should be able to assist you with getting that type of equipment. If they are not, I know Baruch is also, and CUNY is also providing these types of technical capabilities for students, so you can do your schoolwork and so you can fully participate in all of the services that Baruch offers. Let's see, what is next? So staying connected to your team. This is tough. This is certainly tough because we're so used to seeing each other in the office space, maybe to and from the restroom, by the copier. You can pop over to your teammates or your boss when you have a question, or give them a call on the phone. So things are a little bit different right now. So staying in communication is very, very important. And so you want to think about over communicating versus under communicating. You can CC your supervisor as much as you want on emails, but also having those check-ins. And so figuring out what works best for you, whether it be a weekly check-in, maybe you want a daily in the beginning of the day check-in, talking to your teammates and not just your manager. So keeping that sense of community is really going to be helpful. And then also trying to figure out what works best for your team. Is it email? Is it Slack? Is it something like Zoom, or all of the above? And so you want to think about where are most of your teammates going to be so you can communicate with them effectively. A few more points. We've talked about having a focused environment and making sure that you're avoiding temptations. You know, some of us might be working in bedrooms or living rooms that have a TV right there, and it is so tempting to not only watch the news or try to kind of distract yourself from the news, but doing your best to leave the TV off, to not jump over to the kitchen too often, and maybe have your snacks where you're situated for the day. You know, it is tempting. You're having unsupervised computer time and unsupervised work time for the most part. So making sure that you're being self-motivated is going to be really helpful. And then finding that physically and mentally productive space, whether it be something like making sure the lights are turned on as much as you can. You might still be very productive while playing music during the day. So figuring out what works for you. And then also making sure that you take breaks when needed. Maybe it is every 30 minutes or every 2 hours. You want to stand up, you want to stretch, you might want to have a non-related work conversation with someone. This is going to be helpful during these times. And then it is so easy to feel overwhelmed right now with new technologies, new applications to figure out, unfamiliar ways to communicate with your team, you know, having one monitor versus two. I know a lot of people in certain industries have 2 monitors, or going from a PC to a Mac, whatever it may be, but making sure that you realize it's okay to take it day by day, and we're all doing our best in this type of environment. And so our last slide is really about what can I be doing now? And so I feel like everyone's talking about different things, whether it be I'm so busy, I have so much going on, or I'm so bored, I have nothing going on. But you want to think about how can you use this time to be a little bit productive, if possible. And so that's one of the points of taking it day by day. Maybe certain days you're feeling productive, other days you just can't get through and you need to focus just on, helping a loved one or doing your schoolwork. But overall, just know that Starr is here for you and we can continue to help you figuring out your career goals. And so what we would recommend, if possible, is to take this time to update some of your documents. That includes your resume, your cover letter, any writing samples you might have to submit, any projects you're working on for a portfolio. So making sure that you're taking this time to make any of those updates if you can. Like we've talked about, it's a perfect time to stay engaged and to stay networking with these employers and recruiters, because this is not going to last forever this time we're in, and you want to be able to jump right in when an opportunity comes up. And you also want to do your best to schedule any virtual career advisement meetings with staff from Starr. As we mentioned in the upfront, Starr is still offering all of our traditional advisement appointments, whether it be resume, career counseling, focus 2 with a career assessment, so you can still schedule those appointments. And you want to do your best to stay connected to others, whether it be classmates, professors, people from Baruch, etc., and keep moving and staying positive. So at this point, we want to open it up to questions from you. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Anne and I are here and we are going to do our best to answer them. Just keep in mind, we have information at the same pace that you all have information. So we'll answer them to the best of our ability. One question that I see, will this recording be posted on Starr? It will not. So these recordings currently are for our internal records. There is a chance that they're going to be promoted more widespread at some point, but for right now, we're just kind of keeping a record of the work taking place. But any other questions?
And like we also mentioned earlier, we are going to be sending out those links that we shared earlier that have the live hiring data to all of those who have signed in. So please make sure that you sign in on the kiosk. I see someone saying they had the kiosk link takes me to Starr Career Login. Please make sure that the link that you're checking, there is a code that you do actually have to type in. So just refer back to the email that you got for the confirmation. It should have like whatever code you need to put in there. And if you're not able to, please email us at the email you see on the screen and we'll be able to follow up with you.
Yeah, careerdc@baruch.cuny.edu. And
you're
again,
welcome. Thank you. I'm reading these comments.
Shameless plug that tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we're going to be doing an Instagram live at Baruch SCDC. So Anne and I are going to be chatting again. And if you want to join us, we would love to answer more questions you might have. If maybe something doesn't come to mind right now, or you think of something another time. All right, we see a few coming in. Anne, do you want to take the first one?
Sure. So I see Cindy asking, if I receive a summer internship offer from a company that gives college credit, how do I apply for the credit? So usually when an internship, whether it's virtual or in person, during non-coronavirus times, if you receive an internship that offers credit, you would have to register for the internship credit course through your academic department. So if you go onto the Starr website, you'll see there's actually a section on internships for credit, and you can actually see the list of courses that you would take that are listed within each academic school.
Yeah, so for example, if you're trying to do a marketing internship for credit, you would have to talk to the academic marketing department and register for that specific internship credit bearing class. There's another question from Eamon. If job postings are updated regularly, when can we realistically expect a response or a silent rejection from an employer? So this happens on a rolling basis, and unfortunately, every company is going to treat their applications a little differently. if you think back to when Anne was on Starr Search, there is those important dates to keep in mind. The first thing I would encourage you to do is to take a look at the job application closing date. And so that gives you a realistic expectation of when the job is even closed for applications. And from there, I would kind of work in terms of the dates. So if a job closes at the end of April, I would not expect to hear back from them before that date. If you do, then that is great. And that means they were accepting applicants on a rolling basis. But typically employers will only contact folks after that date. I would say within a week or two is typically when you could expect to hear back if they are going to ask you in for any type of next steps. Unfortunately, not all employers will give you that notice if you aren't going to move forward and do that silent rejection. I kind of like that term. But Anne, anything else you want to add in?
I would just add that what Ricki mentioned is really more for our general job postings on Starr Search. If you are looking through for on-campus recruiting positions, which is still happening, on-campus recruiting is closing towards, just for the semester. But once on-campus recruiting does resume, as well as, hosting these virtual interviews, those have a more specific deadline for the on-campus recruiting opportunities. And that deadline is posted for each on-campus recruiting schedule. Those you will hear whether or not you have been accepted for an interview or are being passed on and not being interviewed. So that one just has to do with each specific deadline on Starr Search. Otherwise, for the general postings, what Ricki said is in place. And Ingrid Tadeo, who is our Deputy Director of the Employee Relations team, is joining us and has mentioned that we have approximately 700 active job postings in Starr Search right now. So thank you, Ingrid.
I see, Eamon, you ask another question. Are there some positions that are exclusive for Starr Search that don't show up on the employer website? No, I wouldn't say so, because legally, if they're promoting it to the public, like on something like Starr or LinkedIn, they have to include it on their website as well. But if you think of it, it's always going to be on their website, but it's not always going to be on Starr. So if it is on Starr, that means they are actively looking to hire a Baruch student, because Starr is only accessible to Baruch students. I would definitely capitalize on the positions on Starr because they chose to post them there because they want to hire someone from Baruch, which is great. But sometimes in the job postings, it will ask you to apply both on Starr and on their company website, or you'll see a post on Starr and they will ask you solely to apply on their company website. So different roles are going to have different application criteria. And do you want to take the question from Betty?
So Betty's asking if there are still virtual on-campus recruiting events for Baruch for the rest of the semester. So if we're talking about traditional on-campus recruiting, the way that our office hosted, yes, there's actually one company that is still actively doing on-campus recruiting. And again, that means that they are going to be interviewing virtually, but they are still using our on-campus recruiting program. The company is Realty Operations Group, and they are actively looking for for students to fill their positions. So if you are on campus recruiting eligible, please make sure you check that out. They are going to be doing their interviews towards the end of this month and are still actively searching for candidates. So please apply.
Yeah, in the fall semester, we're fingers crossed, anticipating that OCR is going to be in full swing, and it's going to be quite busy. So that is our hope and our goal for the fall semester.
Do we have any other questions, or if anyone has any questions that they want to ask out loud, you don't have to write in the chat. You can unmute yourself and ask any questions you might have. This just again has our information. I guess I can stop sharing for now. So, yep. So as Ingrid is mentioning from our team, that we do also promote external opportunities through our newsletter. So there might be events that come up the pike through our various emails and inboxes that aren't necessarily Baruch specific. We do try to post those in Starr Search as well as highlight in our weekly newsletter. So that way you all are on top of the game and that you get all the information as is humanly possible. Yes.
All right, well, now is the time. So if there are any last questions, just because we want to be mindful of your time, impressively, in my opinion. We only went a few minutes over. So thank you guys again for joining us. This was our first session on this topic. So we hope it was helpful and you were able to take a few snippets away from the workshop. But again, just know that we're going to continue to offer workshops like this and our appointments and ways to meet with employers all virtually for the rest of the semester for now. And so feel free to continue taking advantage of these services. And anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say again, thank you all so much for joining. Please, if you have any last questions, please ask them now before we end. And just again, please know that we are here for you. We are thinking of you all in these crazy times, and it is completely understandable to feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious. We understand that these are crazy times. So please reach out to us if we can support you in any way in your career path. And you're welcome. Thank you all for your kind thanks.
Yes.
All right, so if anyone has any last questions, we're going to give you a couple seconds to try to type them out. I think we are done for the day, and please feel free to reach out or make appointments with us if you have any other questions.
Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you all for joining. Have a good night.